Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I'm very excited about this particular segment. We have an author who has written a book. The book is The AOC Generation. And when I said to our previous guest, David Cruz of Gothamist, that, oh, our next guest is, wrote a book about AOC, he was like, what, already? And so I don't know if it's the first book about AOC or the AOC generation, but we say good evening to David Freedlander, who is the author of that book. Nice to have you with us, David.
Thanks for having me.
Why was she such a compelling figure for you to write about, even at this, let's be honest, relatively early stage, to have books being written about her effect?
Oh yeah, I mean, in fact, I wasn't even the first. I think I was probably like the third or the fourth.
All right.
And when I approached them to tell them I was doing this book about her office, and they like hung up on me. They like didn't even.
Really?
Oh yeah, wouldn't even entertain the thought of participating in the book, and said like, oh, you're the 10th person that's called us about this. So so for me, I mean, she was just at the time when I was sort of thought about the book is, I mean, she sort of blotted out the sun for a while there. She just sort of took over the political world. I mean, it was really like nothing I've ever seen. I mean, it was like Trump plus Obama in terms of a political phenomenon, right? I mean, she was just everywhere all of a sudden from like total obscurity. And I think maybe at one point I thought it would be like a biography of her or something. I wasn't quite sure, but there just wasn't enough kind of life there for it to be a biography. It's not just that she was so new on the political scene.
She's only 31.
Yeah, at the time, I mean, she was 29, and
Yeah, right.
School, you go to college. It's like she was elected at 28. There's like just a few years in there, and I didn't think that could probably carry a book. So I made it about all this other stuff.
Well, you did, and frankly, your documentation of her at Boston University was quite interesting to find out how she got there. I thought what was very, very interesting that emerged as I went through it is brand new Congress, Democratic Socialists of America, Justice America. I mean, all these groups, and even though ultimately she endorsed them and has become in a way their emblem.
Yeah.
Personally, and I pulled this quote out, I really feel like we are at a point in our democracy where we need to be firing on all cylinders. We need to be challenging the establishment everywhere that it is. And this is my place in the broader revolution. That she, despite the tags that have been put on her, has rejected all of this stuff in her mind because she's really focused on the original idea of helping people and changing their lives for the better. Do I have that right from the summary of everything I read and what you wrote?
I think. I mean, I think so. I mean, if what you're trying to say is that she's sort of not like, it's not as if she was in Democratic Socialists of America and then ran for Congress.
That's right.
Carrying that torch. I mean, the book in a way is about what happened to sort of Democrats, the American left after Trump, which was such a sort of traumatic, I think, event for so many people that everybody kind of scrambled, got really involved in politics. And you had a group like, say, DSA, really come into kind of its own. And she was a real, like, I mean, I think she was sort of tagged as and thought of as a democratic socialist when she first emerged on the scene. But she like started going to DSA meetings when she started running for Congress, to be really clear.
Yeah, and she was, if I can interrupt, and she was doing that because this was a way to get there, not necessarily because she endorsed the organization. And I'm certainly, we're not speaking for her, not to say that she doesn't endorse the organization, but that helping the organization wasn't her goal. It was, number one, to get her to Congress so that she could do that work. That's the way I interpret your book and what I know about her. I mean, I've interviewed her and moderated debates, and everything else. The thing that I think really is wrapped up in this, and why maybe she had that reaction to you, because all that anybody, not I don't want to say anybody, all that many people know about her are the tags. Are the way that she's been labeled, and she wants to resist that and continue to get to the source, and doesn't want to engage in so many of these dialogues that'll give people more of an opportunity to distract from the work. That's my read of what I see.
Well, I think it actually cuts a little bit both ways, because I think that she is kind of sees herself as like a movement politician in a lot of ways. I mean, and if you recall her address at the DNC, which was like 90 seconds and shrouded in controversy,
Yes.
because everything she does is shrouded in controversy. She talked about that she was sort of carrying all these various, forms and groups, all this energy into Congress with her. And so I think she doesn't necessarily see herself as like a DSA person, a Justice Democrats person, this or that, but she does sort of see herself as kind of the avatar of this left-wing youthful organizing. And she sort of, for better or worse, I think she sees herself as like carrying that flag into the Capitol.
And you, I think very correctly, and frankly, it really brought it to light for me, and I hadn't really considered it as strongly, was that the origin of that, the real germ of that was Bernie Sanders, and that Bernie Sanders kind of opened the door to have her and others think, wow, this is possible. This is more than just like, a side political movement. Now, I did an interview with three of the Bronx Assembly members, the new young Bronx Assembly members who have recently been elected, Kenny Burgos, Chantel Jackson, and Amanda Septimo. And I asked them, did they believe that AOC was the person who kind of paved the way? Amanda Septimo had a tremendous answer. She said, yes, we credit what she did, but she was the result of a lot of grassroots work, certainly in the Bronx. I mean, historically, whether we have the Young Lords or other people in the Bronx who have been progressive minded, but here was somebody who finally stood up and actively represented them. I think, you're right, the AOC generation, to me, that's really what, in part, this is about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like she was just so young. I mean, old guys like you and I kind of think that, but
Shh, shh, don't say it.
yeah, it's really it's sort of shocking in a way. I mean, she was really like, there's this notion that she was a bartender, right? As wow, she came in, and while she certainly was a bartender, I mean, she was kind of a kid, a person who has left college and was trying to figure out what to do with their life in a challenging economy. I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, as you and I talked about before we started going. I mean, there was this like .com thing she was a part of, and other kind of nonprofits, and just kind of trying to find a way in the world when this thing happened. I mean, in a way, it was like a running for Congress is almost like a quarter life crisis or something.
You know what else? Frankly, it disturbs me because I interviewed her before she was elected and watched, like everybody else, have watched her career. Is the way she's mischaracterized as being stupid, or not knowing the issues, or not caring really about people. I have not gotten that sense from her. And if you watch the way she interrogated various people, in her role as a Congress member, she is as good and as fierce an interviewer or interrogator as I have ever seen in Congress. I mean, this you don't write about that because you didn't get to that'll be the next book.
Right.
But that means people are, then it gets into anti-woman. Certainly, the fact that she's Hispanic, rankles certain people. So that's my impression of who she is as a figure, and frankly as an elected official.
Yeah, I had the. I mean, in my book, I mean, it's not, to be clear, like, and I stated in the introduction. I mean, it's not an endorsement of her. It's not an endorsement of
Yes,
movement.
clearly.
But I will say, I had that same experience, like meeting her for the first time when she was campaigning in 2018 against Joe Crowley. Because, like you, I've interviewed lots of congressional candidates, long shot congressional candidates, and often you're just sort of like staring at your notebook, like, oh my God, what is this person even? Do they know nothing? What are they even doing running for office? How do they even have a job? And her intelligence, I think, was apparent immediately. And I mean, and she's just so articulate, and she speaks of her ideas so clearly that when you interview her, I almost find that I was often didn't know what else to say, because she had sort of said everything so perfectly. You couldn't even come up with like a follow-up question. And I had the same thing, and it is funny, or not funny. I mean, it's the way in which the political right has tried to characterize her as like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and she's stupid. I mean, you really see the sexism and I think the racism come to the fore there because I mean, she is as knowledgeable as any member of Congress I've ever met.
And, as you know, I went and reviewed the interview that I had done with her prior to the election while she was campaigning. And when I watched it and watched her answers about fundamental questions about immigration, about
Yeah,
workers' rights and all that, she, her answer, and I've interviewed many one-time or first-time candidates, her answers were just defined that movement,
exactly. Yeah.
very, 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 very well.
You
I
could
thought.
just to say, like it's not as she. I mean, she would get tripped up when she had to was asked things that like she didn't quite know about. But she was also asked a range of things that no other congressional candidate is ever asked about. I think. I mean, and because she was supposed to be this sort of spokesperson for a whole movement and a whole generation. I mean, that she was asked about everything, and most sitting members aren't asked about everything. I mean, they just don't have say or control over it.
You know what you just, we're almost out of time, but what you just said reminds me of when Bob Dylan was raised up to be the leader of a revolution. And he was like, I'm a poet. I'm not that, even though I write the times they are changing or many of these other things, Masters of War and all the other things. And I think there's a similarity here that it's like, I want to do the job. I don't necessarily need to be that, but of course, once the spotlight is on you, if you're smart enough, as she has done, you get yourself a million Twitter followers, and you go from there. Listen, last question for you. What's next? Are you going to do more about AOC, or what else are you working on so our viewers can
Well,
enjoy your other work?
I started write for New York Magazine and Politico Magazine and Vanity Fair and other places. And I'm kind of right now I'm in the thick of the New York City mayor's race, which we only have I think 80 days or something to go. So that's taking up all my time and energy now.
We're going to be focusing on, we've already done a mayoral forum, and we're going to be doing more of those. Actually, I'm doing an educational mayoral forum in another week or two. But anyway, listen, David Friedlander, don't be a stranger now. Let's find out what you're doing. And certainly anything that relates to our home borough, the Bronx, we want to have you in here to chat about it. And thanks for the work on AOC. And I recommend it. The book is out. You can get it anywhere, The AOC Generation. And we appreciate your time this evening.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Okay, folks, that'll be it. Thanks to Stephen Powell for pitching in for Rebecca today. And this Thursday, we will tape an interview with Congressmember Richie Torres, and that'll be on Bronx Talk next Monday night. So everybody stay safe. We'll see you around. Thanks.